Hello YouTube people, welcome back to Surreal Garage. Hope you're all doing well. On this video we're going to go over the D-Max. This will be the part 2 of that one. We're going to start putting it back together. So let's show you where we were at when we left it. So what we'll do on this one is show you a little bit of panel work, just how to strike a hammer and dolly to straighten out panels so you're not just stretching them. We'll prep these surfaces here for spot welding. We'll dummy fit our new parts which have turned up. Ignore the bonnet, that's the old one. So we've got the guard, new radiator support, bumper, new bonnet. We already had the inner guard, you seen that last time. We were using that to reference where to remove from on this one. And this is where we left it off. So we used to have a guard in there. All our little spot welds we need to clean up. So they're the little nubs you get left with the spot weld cutter. So if you're able to do it from the right side of the panel, as we are here, we were able to get it on the right side of the flange so we weren't cutting into anything. We can go through, we can knock these off with a little grinder, and that surface will be nice and clean. So what I've treated all this with here, as you can see the grey, nice and fresh, is a Zinc spot weld through primer. You can get it Zinc, you can get it copper, there's probably other variants out there. I like the Zinc one. And you can put this on and it will actually weld through it. It'll also stop it from rusting up and stuff. So whenever you're working on an area where you can't treat it afterwards, get some of that stuff like back here. Wouldn't be able to spray in there too well once I've got panels mating on that face. So you spray some of that stuff on now and it keeps it covered afterwards. So we're going to work on the panel alignment, start putting them in. I'll set the GoPro up on the tripod, do a little bit of time lapse of fitting. Nothing special in all of that, just make sure everything lines up before you start welding things in. If you start welding things in and you come back and find out stuff's whole front end's 45-degree angle, you or whoever you're doing the job for is not going to be too impressed. Stay tuned. Alright, so before we can start trying to line panels up, we've got to straighten some of the damaged stuff that's already up. So I'll give you a quick rundown on hammer and dolly stuff. So I'm just going to knock this out a bit straighter. There's no perfect hammer, perfect dolly for any of these situations, so don't go and make a dolly and hammer set to suit the front inner guard connection to radiator support for a 2008 Isuzu D-Max. It doesn't exist. You'll never find that listing. If you do, send that listing to me. So one of the things you want to work with when doing this, something a lot of people don't often understand or realise, is you don't want to hear this when you're shaping, like bending metal. That ringing means you're stretching it. You don't want to put it there, so you want the dolly on your high, hammer on your low, vice versa, depending on which side you're going to put it on from. So if you had it there and you're hitting back that way, you want that dolly pushing pressure on the area that you want moved. You don't want to just shove it on there and start smacking into that, because all you're going to do is stretch that metal and you'll never get it right. You'll have to chuck a shrinker on it, you'll have to chuck a heat torch on it, you got to shrink that back down to the shape it's going to be. So what we're going to do now is I'll probably time lapse this a bit and I'll smack this stuff out a bit straighter, then we'll get back in there. So it's not always going to be just hammer and dolly on this as well. That one there is fairly bent back. I'm going to have to shove a pair of pliers or some duck folds or something on that and start to pull that back through. Everything's a hammer and dolly, or everything is a hammer unless it's a screwdriver, and then it's a chisel. So the noise you want to hear more likely, you want to put that on your high spot and smack down on your lows. You want to push that out, not stretch it. For those wondering what a duct fold was after I'd mentioned them, it's these. They're meant for grabbing and bending metal. And you're not necessarily just bashing into these as well. You're just trying to swap highs and lows. That's how you get metal straight again. When you've got areas like this where you've got a crinkle there, now this whole thing is under tension. Releasing that will push that back to where it's supposed to be. Same as pulling this down, releases this edge, and it'll let that come back to where we want it to be. Now see, as we're hitting that, it's starting to come back up. Now with this sort of stuff, the more time you take doing it, the better your finish is going to be. Don't just run in there and start bashing it and pretty much reversing the original damage you were dealing with. Take your time and get it right. So another thing worth mentioning, when you're working with curved areas, as I said, there's no perfect dolly for any scenario, but find one close to the radius you want it to be. So if you're working on a fairly flat surface and you start getting towards the end when you're going to start planishing and shaping that way, try and find one that's fairly close to the radius and stuff you want. It's got the same crown is what you're playing with. Okay, so we've put some hammer and dolly to this. I don't know if you recall what it looks like. What I'll try and do in the editing is get a before and after shot installed after I do this run through. If I can't make it happen, sorry, it won't happen. Let's find out together. Yeah! What I've done is basically released this back to where it wants to be. Metal knows where it wants to be. It was pressed into a shape and it wants to go back to that shape. So if you just find the release point when you're doing the hammer and dolly, don't overdo it. So if you remember, we had a 90-degree fold there. So we brought this shape back out and into it. So it lines back up in the firewall. So that's fairly smooth. I mean, this isn't planished or anything, guys, so it's not perfect. I can get it probably better than this. But this is about half an hour of playing with it or so. So that was all caved in before. This was completely different shape before. As I said, I'll try and find a before and after still of a throw together. But she's looking a lot better than she was. Besides this, we'll clean this up and we clean up the rest of these spot welds and stuff. But yeah, got it back to where it wanted to be. Just a reminder, don't smack bang onto your dollies with the hammer, you don't want to hear it ringing unless you're planishing. When you're planishing, you're not hitting that hard. You're still doing the dolly on high, hammer on sort of technique, but you hit it softer and you hit it a lot more times. Lots of smaller taps. We'll move on to the next piece of this, which needs straightening out, which is this bit up here. It's going to be a lot of fun, just to try and pull it back forward to where it's supposed to be. So we got all straight again. So we ended up putting this waterfall back in, putting this top edge back in, reshaping this body line in here, reshaping that back in through there. So this was a bit more rippled than we thought. Put this one back in through here. And when we go under here, we had a bit of work in here. We had all up in here that we could see before. Head up through here. It was a bit nasty. Through there, so it actually looks a lot worse than it is because you can see our hammer strokes through the dirt. This is actually quite flat. From the crash, there was a stretch here, and without punching that through and bellying it out too much, it was we just shrunk it back in, hammer shrunk it through here. We had a big crease through here, which is now gone. Now we're ready to start cleaning up spot welds. Something I did just then was the person who done the previous repairs done a whole bunch of welding through here, and it was kind of horrible. So I just wanted to get rid of that. It was all sharp and jaggy and looked like a bit of bird shit. So I just want to get rid of that. I'm not going to make this perfect. That's not what I've been asked to do. But yeah, I just didn't want to leave that behind. All our spot weld areas nice and clean, nice and flat again, and we've just sprayed some zinc based weld through primer. So the main reason why I put it on, I don't need to put it on this side right now, this side, putting it on the back side here. If you recall, when this goes on, all of this gets closed off and I won't be able to put it on again later. I probably could, but it'll be an absolute nightmare. So much easier doing it now. Paint's designed to be welded to, through, around. Zinc based, it's not going to cause any rust. Another thing I did was just clean out all the little metal shavings and stuff from when we did all the spot weld drilling, because they're the first things that are going to start to rust. The minute they start cutting in, rust gets everywhere, and you don't want rust in here. So treat this while you can. Do whatever you can to possibly stop it from rusting up now. Time to start trying to fit the new panels in. So they're all nice and dried with the primer. So now we're going to try and start putting them in. check our alignment. So don't hard weld anything in yet until you know everything's where you want it to be. And then even if you know where everything wants to be, still don't just hardwire everything, because you're going to pick which welds you can't actually reach with a clamp style spot welder, and you're going to be hitting them ones with a MIG. So I'll chuck this back on the time lapse, I'll start fitting everything up, and then once I've got it all lined up and I'm happy to say that's where I want it to be, I'll explain more about pinch weld spot welding and MIG spot welding and the difference between what you need to do to prep for them. Let's get into it. We got a couple of clamps on there just to hold her in place, and surprisingly fitting wasn't too bad. It's not unusual for these to not actually fit and line up and all that. There's little tabs here to lock it in place, I haven't put them down yet. Another one shoots through here and over, I haven't done that because I still want to take all this apart again. So through there, it's actually not terrible, but as I say, it's not unusual for these to not completely line up. So even this one that we've banged all back together, it's actually fitting pretty good. A little bit more massaging, it's not unusual as well to put this on and then find out it still needs a little bit of massaging and persuading and whatnot, because you're literally just putting this back to where the metal wants to be, and then you want to push it further to where you want it to be. So one of the things I was talking about before with the pinch weld versus MIG spot, something like that I can get my pinch welder onto, and literally I just put it on there, clamp it down, heat her up, and they fuse together. Same as here, same as along the top edge here where they used to be. Now the ones you're going to have problems with, ones like this where these holes are that I cut out because I could get to the back side of, these ones here where I couldn't get, that obviously goes up there. Smack that in a little bit tighter, make it happy. But where I can't get to the back side of and stuff like that. So what you want to do on those, you get yourself about a 4mm drill bit or so and drill where you want them. And then you come back through the drill bit, so imagine that they're your 4mm, these are obviously pretty big, that's where we had to cut the spot welds. So imagine that, and you only drill through this panel, not through this. You want the backing plate there. If you were to do it on these ones, you only drill through here, not through here. So that's why you take it back off, because I'll mark up where I want to put them. I'll drill it all, so the ones that need to be spotted, and then I'll stick it back on and I'll spot weld. So I know those ones I need to go through mark-up drill. These ones are alright. I've got the holes there from when I had to cut the spot weld, same as in there. So I'll use these holes to spot weld them back together. Then I can pinch weld, pinch weld along here. Don't need to drill those. Got the holes there already to do what I need to do there. I can spot it. And then it's just the exact same thing on this side. Another thing as well, don't start doing this until you've actually got it all completely aligned. So even though this is all lining up with itself on the car, it doesn't mean that it's going to line up with bonnet latches and stuff like that. This may need to come forward a bit, this little things like that. So I'm going to chuck the bonnet on, I'm going to chuck a couple of panels on and see what the alignment is between the bonnet and the panels and the new inner guard over there before I call it done. I'll probably do a couple of little holes through some areas so I can chuck my clecos on. If you don't know what a cleco is, it's a little temporary rivet, clamps in, holds the panels together, and then once I'm happy with all that, I'll start welding it in. Okay, so we did the panel fit. We're all pretty happy with with how that went. We're just putting it all back together, and I've just put this panel back on now so I know when I've got all this side lined back up to how it was, I can reference it that it's still going to line up over there. Before I mentioned a Cleco and spot weld with the MIG and spot weld versus with the pinch welder. So this is a Cleco, just slots in there, drill your hole where you want to hold the thing, and there you go, little temporary rivets. So I don't need a lot because this is actually fitting quite nicely. I'll massage that in a little bit. They're never going to be the same as what this is. These two were never grafted to begin with. This is the first time they're marrying. So these holes here are what we're going to do our spot welds through. So we'll punch the MIG in through them, and that'll turn into a little spot weld. Not much different to what you can see here. And that'll hold that back to where it's supposed to be. The reason I'm doing that with a MIG is I can't fit my pinch weld spot welder in there. Just isn't going to happen, because this is my pinch weld spot welder. So this is a deep throat spot welder. Basically you put the 2 bits of metal through there, clamp it down till you get your pressure you want, then you hit the switch and that'll fuse them together. Okay, going to give you a quick demo of the pinch spot weld, which will be fun with one hand and the other on the camera, but let's just give it a go. Put her in, clamp down with the amount of pressure you want, then pull the trigger. See the heat going through. Once you start seeing that crawl away, that's it, she's done. Nice and strong. And give that a little zip up, but it's similar to how they do it in factory if you've ever wondered how they get them little welds. So we have a spot under there, all done with the MIG. Knock the top off. We're just going through, putting these together. This side's been done already. Now this black coating that comes on these, it's not conductive. So you do need to clean that paint off the back side, as another hint, before you go to start welding. Another thing to keep in mind as well when you are welding on your car, disconnect the battery. If you don't disconnect the battery and you start welding, especially if you're doing heavier gauge stuff, building sliders, bull bars, working on anything like that, you will destroy that battery. You will absolutely fry that battery. Alrighty, we're all welded back up, spotted up, looking good. That's what you get out of the pinch welder. You can only do them where the pinch welder can reach it. And then these ones here are just done with the MIG. You can't get up inside the framework there to get it. Same as down in there. Doesn't want to work. In there. Same on this side. Run across the front here. Go to there. That's with the pinch welder. But all back together. See it out lining up pretty good. Now just bolt some guards on. Give you a look at what she looks like, as finished as I can get her. There we go, bolted back together. So you've got to put the flares on this side, but need some paint first. The gaps are all good again. Once again, needs the flare back on this side. That'll happen after some paint. There it is. Needs the headlights, the radiator. Radiator's not supposed to turn up till the end of the week, so try and get some paint on it in the meantime. Get the headlights in there after we've got some paint. So there's no point in ripping a lot of that stuff apart because, once again, it does need some paint. Don't know whether or not I'll do a video on painting it or just post up on my page the finished product and how she looks. But as far as aesthetics go, she's back together and she is looking just like I bought one. So if you found anything useful on this, once again, let us know. Let us know what you found interesting, if anything. Keep following our channel. It'll evolve. We've got more stuff coming. Like, subscribe, share it, tell your friends. Let's try and get this channel to grow for us. Be very much appreciated. But there it is. Another good day.